Have you noticed that every major collapse begins with a number? 1929, 1971, 2008. 3 years that tore through history like a quiet storm, each one erasing the illusions of prosperity the world thought would last forever. But behind those dates lies something deeper than financial charts or government failures. It's a pattern, an ancient rhythm that empires keep repeating over and over again. Every empire rises on trust and falls the moment that trust is broken. The Roman Denarius, the British pound, the American dollar. Different symbols, same fate. Each promised stability, wealth, and control, until greed and manipulation turned them into illusions. In 1929, the illusion shattered. The Roaring Twenties had made people believe they had outsmarted history. Banks were gods. The market was endless. But all it took was one spark, one sell-off, and the system folded in on itself. Millions lost everything. Factories went silent, bread lines wrapped around city blocks, and the same people who had laughed at warnings now stood in the cold, holding worthless paper in their hands. But here's the thing about collapse. It doesn't announce itself. It starts slowly, invisibly. You don't see it coming because you're inside it. The rules shift while no one's looking, and by the time people realize it, it's already too late. A year most people forget, but one that changed the entire structure of money forever. That's when President Nixon, with a single televised speech, ended the gold standard. The world's currencies were no longer backed by anything real. For the first time in modern history, money became just paper. A promise, no longer tied to value, only to faith. And like every empire before, faith began to rot. You see, when money dies, it doesn't happen in explosions. It dies in silence, through inflation, through lies, through manipulation disguised as policy. It dies in the decisions made behind closed doors by men who speak in calm tones while rewriting the value of your life savings. Another number, another illusion destroyed. They called it a housing crisis, but it wasn't about houses. It was about trust. The banks gambled with the world's future, sold risk as safety, and built castles out of debt. When it all came crashing down, the same institutions that caused the chaos were the ones rescued first. Ordinary people paid the price. Again. And now, 2026. The year history repeats one last time. But this time, it's different. This time, it's global. Stocks, bonds, real estate, all inflated by decades of artificial growth. Governments drowning in debt. Central banks printing hope out of thin air. And while the world scrolls distracted, the same quiet pattern unfolds. It doesn't start with panic, it starts with whispers. Inflation that doesn't go away, savings that buy less every month, leaders that say everything's fine. Until one morning people wake up and realize the numbers no longer mean anything. The money they work for, save, depend on, has begun to die. But here's what they won't tell you. Every collapse isn't just an economic event. It's a transfer of power, of wealth, of control. And while the world looks at the symptoms, the architects of this system are already preparing for what comes next. Digital currencies, surveillance finance, programmable money, where every transaction can be tracked, approved, or denied. The new empire won't need armies. It will own the code that defines your freedom. And it all begins in 2026. Because while you're hearing this, somewhere, in a boardroom, in a bank, in a government office, the next step is already being signed. And like every empire before, it will end the same way. Not with a bang, but with silence. If you've made it this far, you already see what most people don't. So before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because understanding what's coming might be the only way to survive it. They say history is written by the victors, but when it comes to money, history is written by those who print it. To understand 2026, you need to go back, not just to 1929 or 1971, but to 1913. The year the foundation of everything we call modern finance was quietly built. That was the birth of the Federal Reserve, the private institution that would control the heartbeat of the world's economy for more than a century. It wasn't created in broad daylight. It began on a small island off the coast of Georgia, Jekyll Island, where the most powerful bankers of the age met in secret. No journalists, no records. Just a handful of men rewriting the very definition of money itself. Their goal? To create a system that could expand endlessly, a machine that would never stop growing, no matter the cost. And they succeeded. Because from that moment on, the United States, and soon the entire planet, was locked into a cycle of controlled inflation and hidden debt. Every dollar you've ever held in your hands was born out of debt. It's not backed by gold, silver, or labor. It's backed by a promise that must constantly grow or it collapses. And like every empire before it, that endless growth has reached its breaking point. After 1913 came the Roaring Twenties, a decade of illusion, the first great experiment in mass consumerism. People believed they could borrow their way to prosperity, but debt is a silent predator. It hides behind optimism, waiting for the moment when confidence runs out. When 1929 hit, that confidence vanished overnight. Banks closed their doors, markets froze, and while ordinary families lost everything, those who had engineered the system quietly bought the ruins for pennies. Crisis wasn't a failure, it was a harvest. Fast forward to 1971, another adjustment, another illusion. They told the world it was a necessary move, a modernization of global finance. But what they really did was unleash money without restraint. From that day forward, currencies could be printed without limits, governments could borrow endlessly, and the cycle of expansion became unstoppable. It wasn't economics, it was control. Because when everything, food, housing, energy, even time, depends on a currency that can be manipulated, you no longer live in an economy. You live in a system of obedience. Then came 2008, the Great Rehearsal, a collapse so large that it should have reset everything. But instead it was used to make the machine even bigger. Trillions printed overnight, interest rates cut to zero, debt stacked on top of debt, as if gravity no longer existed. And now in 2026, gravity returns, because the very foundation of that system, the trust that keeps money alive, is crumbling. Look around. Governments are drowning in obligations they can't pay. Central banks are trapped, raise interest rates and they destroy their own economies, lower them and they fuel inflation. Every solution feeds the problem. Every rescue digs the hole deeper. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. It was never meant to be fixed. The collapse isn't a malfunction. It's a design, a reset disguised as an accident. When debt becomes too large to repay, the system doesn't reform. It resets. And in every reset, the same pattern repeats. Old money dies. New money is born. And the people caught in between lose everything. So if you're watching this thinking 2026 will be just another recession, think again. This isn't a cycle. It's an ending. The same pattern that destroyed Rome, Spain, Britain, now comes for the United States. And just like them, it won't be conquered from the outside. It will fall from within. The final stage has already begun, quietly, invisibly. Behind screens, behind algorithms, behind laws written in language so complex that no one questions what they truly mean. The empire of debt has entered its final act, and the curtain is rising on 2026. But the question isn't if it will fall, it's what replaces it, because what comes after might not look like freedom at all. Before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this message reach the people who still believe nothing can collapse. Every empire that falls leaves behind something new. But what's coming after 2026 isn't just a new system of money, it's a new system of control. While most people watch the surface, the markets, the elections, the news cycles, a quiet revolution is unfolding in the digital shadows. It doesn't need tanks or soldiers. It's built with code, data, and compliance. The perfect empire, one that rules not by fear but by dependency. You've heard the words before: digital currency, central bank digital currency, the future of money. They sound innovative, harmless, even exciting, but beneath the marketing lies a transformation as profound as the gold standard's fall in 1971, maybe even greater, because when cash disappears, freedom disappears with it. For centuries, physical money, gold, silver, paper, acted as a shield between people and power. If you had it in your hand, it was yours. It couldn't be tracked, frozen, or programmed. It represented independence. But the new money, digital, centralized, traceable, changes everything. It's not held, it's granted, not owned, but permitted. It lives in databases controlled by institutions that already decide what is safe, what is acceptable, and what is dangerous. Imagine this. You wake up in 2026. The economy has reset. The old currencies are gone, replaced by something new. A central bank digital token, hailed as the solution to global instability. Your savings automatically converted, your transactions automatically monitored. At first, it feels like progress, fast, convenient, clean. But then the rules start to change. A purchase limit here, a restriction there. Suddenly, your access to money isn't based on how much you earned, but on what you comply with. The machine no longer just measures your wealth, it measures your behavior. This isn't fiction. China already runs a prototype. Europe is testing its version, and the United States, while pretending to hesitate, is quietly laying the groundwork. History repeats itself because the architects never change the blueprint, they just update the technology. In Rome, control was maintained through taxes and armies. In the 20th century, through banks and credit. In the 21st, it's algorithms and data. Invisible chains, made of numbers disguised as convenience. And while people argue over politics, the real decisions are being coded in systems most will never see, but all will depend on. The new empire doesn't conquer land. It conquers permission. That's the hidden truth of 2026. This final currency collapse isn't to the end of money. It is the rebirth of control. A world where inflation, debt, and collapse were never the problems, they were the tools. Because chaos creates obedience, and every crisis gives birth to a savior. They'll tell you it's for your safety. That programmable money will stop crime, corruption, and instability. They'll show you charts and slogans and smiling officials signing digital bills. But behind the glass, the real goal is efficiency. Not for you, but for them. The same men who met on Jekyll Island in 1913 now have global descendants, bankers, tech executives, and policymakers, all moving in silent coordination. They don't need conspiracy. They have consensus. To them, the collapse of 2026 isn't a threat. It's an opportunity. A global reset to eliminate the unpredictable human element from economics. Emotion, fear, rebellion. Because a controlled economy creates a controlled society. They call it modernization. You might call it the end of autonomy. So as history accelerates toward that date, remember, what is being built isn't a fix to the system that failed. It is the next version of it. Smarter, faster, unquestionable. But here's the paradox of every empire of control. The tighter it grips, the faster it cracks. Because no algorithm can predict the one thing that always survives collapse. Human awareness. The ability to see through illusion, to question what others accept, to rebuild what others surrender. That's why you're here. You've seen the pattern. You know the dates, 1929, 1971, 2008, and now 2026. This isn't just another story about money. It's a prophecy about control. And when the collapse is complete, the question won't be how much your money is worth, but how much your freedom costs. If you're still watching, it means you're part of the small group that refuses to sleepwalk into the next empire. So take a moment, like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes everything is fine. Because in the end, awareness might be the only currency that can't be devalued. Every story of power ends the same way, not with a scream but with silence, a silence heavy enough to swallow history itself. 2026 won't be remembered for a single crash, a single speech, or a single law. It will be remembered as the quiet moment when people realized that the world they trusted no longer existed. You see, collapses don't just destroy systems, they reveal them. They pull back the curtain, showing what was always there. Greed disguised as progress, corruption disguised as policy, and obedience disguised as order. The last century was a story of illusion, of nations believing they were free, while their economies were carefully engineered by invisible hands. Every boom was borrowed, every recovery, an illusion, every crisis, an opportunity for those who understood the cycle. And now the cycle comes full circle. The debt has grown beyond numbers. The markets no longer respond to logic, and the institutions built to protect the system are now trapped within it. History has always punished arrogance. Rome fell when its money lost meaning. Britain declined when its currency lost trust. And America stands now at the same edge, pretending the fall will never come. But the laws of history don't bend for anyone. 2026 isn't just another date. It is the closing chapter of an era that began in 1913, the era of debt-based empires. The Federal Reserve System, the IMF, the World Bank, all threads of the same fabric, designed to expand, control, and eventually implode. And as the implosion begins, the world will demand a savior. They'll offer one, a new system, sleek and digital, flawless on the surface, but it won't free humanity. It will tether it, a financial cage disguised as convenience, a future where money is no longer earned but assigned, where dissent becomes expensive and obedience becomes profitable. That's the true prophecy of 2026. Not the fall of currencies, but the fall of choice. Yet even in collapse, history offers something sacred: rebirth. Because when systems fail, truth finds a way back in. The illusion shatters, and for a brief, rare moment, humanity sees clearly again. In those moments, civilizations are reborn. New ideas rise from the ashes of arrogance. Old powers fade, and for those who are awake, a new beginning emerges. Maybe that's the hidden mercy in every collapse. The pain breaks the illusion. The silence teaches what noise never could. And so, as we approach the edge of 2026, the question is not whether the world will change. It is whether we'll change with it, or let history write us as just another empire that refused to listen. The signs are already here. Debt levels higher than any point in human history. Currencies losing trust faster than they can be printed. Governments turning to technology as the final solution. And ordinary people trying to live, to save, to hope, without realizing they are the collateral. But here's the truth history always hides in plain sight. Empires don't end because of collapse. They end because people stop believing in them. The moment belief dies, the empire dies with it. So maybe 2026 isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning of something else. Something not built on paper promises or invisible algorithms. Something real. Because when the illusion of money fades, what remains are the things no system can counterfeit: trust, community, knowledge, and courage. That is what built civilizations long before central banks existed, and it is what will rebuild them after they fall. If you're listening now, you're already ahead of time. You see what's coming, and maybe, just maybe, that awareness will be your greatest asset. History doesn't belong to those who predict it. It belongs to those who prepare for it. So when you hear 1929, 1971, 2008, 2026, don't hear disaster, hear warning, hear opportunity. Because every collapse clears the ground for something new, and those who understand that truth survive it. The final currency collapse has begun, but so has the chance to build something better. The question is, who will? If you felt this message, or like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who still believes the system will last forever. Because awareness spreads faster than collapse, and that might be the only thing powerful enough to stop it.